Why did Harry directly call out Alice's real name? Because he was the true mastermind behind sending Conrad and Maeve to prison, and that's the real reason he let Alice escape. Did you notice? In the plot, only Colin, the police chief, knew Alice's real name, yet Harry also knew it. During the conversation between Richie and Colin, both men were aware that Harry was planning to betray the family. So, is it possible that Harry had already sided with Richie? That's why he allowed Alice to take the crucial DNA evidence, the cup containing Maeve's lipstick and Conrad's cigarette, so she could fulfill her deal with Colin.
After everything Conrad Harrigan's done, he's going away forever for something he didn't do.
Meanwhile, Harry would rise as the new king of the Harrigan family. In fact, Harry's betrayal was foreshadowed long ago. He lied to Conrad about why he killed Freddie, proving his disloyalty. Both Jamie and Richie mentioned that Harry had long been plotting against the family. Even earlier, Harry threatened Eddie.
I'll push you off.
Which wasn't just about Eddie's affair with Gina. It was a hint that he intended to destroy the entire family, and he had every reason to do it. Conrad tried to assault Gina, and if Jane hadn't interrupted him, things could have been worse. Meanwhile, Eddie's ambiguous relationship with Gina and Maeve's threats left Gina terrified. But by the end, Maeve was taken away, and Gina was seen clinging to Harry, clearly having confided in him about everything. Touching Harry's daughter was the stupidest thing they ever did. Why hasn't anyone suspected that Harry and Jean might actually be undercover police officers? What appears to be a conflict between the Conrad and Richie families is, in reality, orchestrated by the military behind the scenes. The two of them have distinct roles. Harry is responsible for infiltrating the Conrad family to gain their trust, while Jean serves as a decoy to attract attention openly. After all, someone as shrewd as Harry wouldn't need to disclose critical information to Jean, information that could later be relayed to Alice, if he truly wanted to prevent leaks about the Conrad family's secrets. The reason Harry does this is that his entire operation hinges on balancing both families. Even his subordinate Paul is a Conrad plant. Although Harry had Paul intervene to cut off Jean's conversation, the crucial information had already fallen into police hands. It was all a facade to reassure Kevin and old Conrad, designed to solidify Harry's credibility within the Conrad family. Harry even exploited Archie's death to sow a sliver of doubt in Conrad's mind about Maeve. His goal is to turn Conrad against Maeve and fracture the family from within. As for Maeve's alleged connection to the Richie family, this further fuels Conrad's distrust of her. Meanwhile, Jean's deliberate clumsiness in revealing flaws only reinforces the perception that she's a naive, foolish woman, lowering their guard. Conrad's warnings and tests toward her, without actual harm, prove Harry's success. This family is marching toward ruin, and the Richie family is equally crippled, but the ones who will ultimately destroy them are Harry and the police. Harry and Serafina are the true rats of the Harrigan family. The opening scene, where a bullet and a gemstone fall beside two rats, is the clearest hint. The bullet represents raw power. Harry embodies absolute strength. The gemstone is even more obvious. Only Serafina deals in jewels. Moreover, Harry could have stopped Alice, but deliberately let her escape, allowing her to take evidence tainted with Maeve and Conrad's DNA. This would later serve as proof for Sheriff Colin to frame Conrad and Maeve.
He's going away forever for something he didn't do.
Harry had already concealed the truth about Freddie's death. He must have tested Freddie, realized the man knew he was the real traitor, and then killed him on the spot. That's why he lied to Conrad. Conrad, of course, sensed something was off, but he still needed Harry's strength, so he couldn't afford to turn against him yet. As for Serafina, Harry warned her, yet she still went through with the deal. Did she truly not know the danger, or did she know she wouldn't die? When she miraculously survived, her first move was to rush into Harry's arms. Their closeness is undeniable. Another telling detail, when Maeve fake comforted her, Serafina and Harry exchanged a glance behind Maeve's back. They were clearly plotting something, and at the end, Serafina locked eyes with Sheriff Colin inside the car. She's definitely orchestrating something far bigger. Sending Conrad and Maeve away was only the first step. You think Conrad's finished? This is just his trap for Richie. The most damning evidence is how relaxed Conrad and Maeve acted, even singing that prison break song,
Anti-men from Dublin town.
right in front of the cops. Either they've lost their minds or they had a backup plan. And Harry, watching from upstairs, that was their arranged cavalry all along. You've misread Sheriff Colin's allegiance. He'd already defected to Conrad. That's the real reason Conrad dared to risk himself. Did anyone ever question why the same cop who put Richie away for 25 years suddenly teamed up with him? His first move was using Richie to eliminate Fix's team, who'd been investigating the Harrigans. The payoff? Colin took over their role managing the Harrigan affairs. Proof he was always one of them, pretending to side with Richie while Conrad reaped real benefits. Think back. Though Colin sent Alice to steal the DNA, it was Conrad who invited her in. Clearly, this was staged. Under heavy surveillance, Harry's decision to let Alice escape was full of holes. And why did Harry schedule that 10 p.m. meeting with Lawyer O'Hara? Not to deal with Kate or root out traitors, but to frame Richie.
It's a waiting game. Then, when it's time to strike,
every single move was designed to hook a big fish, Richie himself. Why did no one suspect Harry framed Maeve as the mole? The evidence was right there, on that blue slip of paper with the fentanyl batch number that Harry handed to Conrad. It definitely carried more than just drug info. Harry likely encoded the mole's signal on it. He couldn't say it outright because Maeve had the entire house under surveillance, something proven by her conversations with Gina and the sudden surveillance camera angles during the banquet. Rewind to the scene. Conrad stared at the note, then tore it apart in rage before lashing out at the innocent Paul.
I said fuck off!
Yeah.
Sure, Conrad was always hot-tempered, but this outburst felt unusually timed. And here's the kicker. Conrad later interrogated Eddie. Why? Because Harry had already fed him intel, prompting Conrad to verify it. And what did he find? Maeve was indeed scheming behind his back. That's why, during the banquet, when Alice left and Maeve made a snide remark, Conrad snapped instantly. Maeve was visibly shocked, while Harry remained unfazed. But here's the real question. Harry clearly knew Maeve wasn't the real mole. Otherwise, he wouldn't have killed Freddy to cover his tracks. So why feed Conrad false info at this exact moment? My theory, Conrad had been digging too deep into the mole hunt, and Harry needed to protect the actual informant, so he framed Maeve instead. And Maeve, she made a fatal mistake, threatening Gina in the stables. Now look at the ending. Gina stands by the window, comforted by Harry, who coldly watches Maeve get hauled away in a police car. This was Harry's revenge for his daughter. Why did Harry's wife and the Jackal's wife, both as mob wives, behave so differently? Harry's wife had long wanted a divorce. She was clearly terrified by her husband's actions.
What do you need a solicitor for?
Come on, Harry.
No, babe. You don't need a solicitor.
And was the one who tipped off the police about Harry's mission location. Luckily, Kevin diverted the authorities. Conrad repeatedly warned her not to mention Harry, but Jane ignored him and even deliberately leaked information to Alice. At the banquet, when Alice left, Jane nearly lost her composure. If Harry hadn't stopped her in time, she would have blown her cover as an informant. When Conrad and Maeve were taken away, she couldn't hide her relieved expression, proof that she had been quietly trying to escape the family and rid herself of Harry. In stark contrast, the Jackal's wife, Nuria, never once considered betrayal. Sharp and observant, she recognized her husband just from his profile in a car. Even when faced with the arsenal of guns and masks in their hidden room, she remained unfazed. When she discovered his killings for hire, she didn't leave. Instead, she became his anchor. This ruthless assassin would always calm down in her embrace. Had the Jackal's identity not been exposed in the end, Nuria would never have disappeared. But her sudden departure was likely for their child's safety, and perhaps even to ensure she and their son wouldn't become liabilities. In a way, leaving might have been the safest choice, freeing the Jackal from any vulnerabilities. I believe next season, we'll see the Jackal and Nuria reunite. Why did the employers dare to withhold the Jackal's 20 million balance? After all, the last person who refused to pay was killed by him. The Jackal can even successfully assassinate billionaires and presidents. How could those who owe him money be so reckless as to risk their lives over what for them is mere pocket change? Logically, they shouldn't hesitate to pay, knowing the consequences. But looking back at the plot, you realize these two employers had their reasons. The first was the president's son, who hired the Jackal to kill his own father. Unaware of his employer's identity, the Jackal accidentally shot the son in the leg while completing the mission. Furious at being wounded and naively assuming the Jackal didn't know he was the mastermind,
I hired you to shoot my father, and then you shot me, so I was mad.
the son refused to pay the balance and even insulted him, but he severely underestimated the Jackal's capabilities and ultimately died in his car, despite heavy security. The second employer never expected the Jackal to return alive. Their plan from the start was to silence him. They had ties to government officials and intended to send the female assassin to kill the Jackal, then eliminate her afterward to erase all evidence. They were fully aware the Jackal had killed the previous employer who withheld payment, even under tight urban security. But since they planned to dispose of him anyway, they saw no reason to pay. The lesson, never owe money to an assassin. You might pay with your life. This setup is both absurd and dramatically fitting, almost like a dark joke about capitalists always finding ways to withhold wages. Wild guess, in season 2, the Jackal still won't get his money.